the idea that there's a new me, that idea or that assumption, as you call it, seems reasonable. In other words, yes, tomorrow I'll be better than today because I'm growing, I'm developing, I'm doing better every day. So there's a new me awaiting for me, right? But when a person is depressed, when a person is sad, when a person is heartbroken, when a person is devastated, when you talk to them about the idea of a new you, that does not resonate. That does not make sense. It's like, no, man, you don't understand. I'm done. I feel dead. In other words, the assumption that there is a new you is huge. And it makes a lot of sense for us when we feel happy and when we are on a growth pathway. But when we feel down.
Welcome back to Relatable Wisdom, the podcast where everyday people share the quotes that have shaped their lives, inviting us all to reflect and grow together. Today we're joined by Dr. Flavio Souza Campos, an award-winning hypnotherapist and spiritual guide with a remarkable journey that blends science, philosophy, and the healing power of love. With nearly 30 years of experience, Flavio helps others navigate the complexities of relationships and emotional healing, offering insights that resonate deeply. Let's open our hearts and minds as we explore the wisdom Flavio has to share with us today. And can you tell us your name, who you are, and what you do?
Yes, hello, everyone. I'm Flavio Souza Campos. I'm a hypnotherapist. I help people find themselves by going inside of their minds. And I'm in Miami, Florida, in the United States.
Okay, what's your favorite quote?
I love this quote, "New you awaits within." That's a quote that I've been using at the office for almost 30 years now. It was always my sign-off line in my emails and my advertisement, and it was always the quote that I've used. And I love that quote. Don't remember when I came up with it. It was a long time ago, but I love it because a new you awaits within. It's exactly how I feel about the work that we do. People come over to see me with problems. They go into hypnosis, which means that they go within themselves and they find solutions to their problems. So I've always understood that there's always a new version of us awaiting us within ourselves.
Yeah, when you say a new you awaits you, right? One could also say that, I feel like people could subject that to misinterpretation where they feel like, oh, yeah, I don't have to do anything. When if I just wait for the time to pass, that new me would eventually show up.
That's a very, very interesting thing. I was in another conversation yesterday when we're discussing this idea that time makes problems go away. But in reality, time does not heal any problem. It doesn't make the problem go away.
Yeah.
When time passes, we might forget about the problem. We might compensate for the problem. We might put another problem on top of the original problem, but the original problem never goes away. In the world of hypnosis, we deal a lot with something called regressions. It happens whether or not a person believes in past lives. It happens naturally. And when you work with regressions, when you work with past lives, you realize that a lot of our problems today have been there for sometimes thousands of years. The only thing is that it was buried in the unconscious mind. It was hidden. It was pushed away. And so time does not heal the problem. It simply masks or covers up the problem. And that problem always shows up in a different way. So for instance, when a person comes over and they have a health problem, usually, of course, there's a biological reason for that problem, but underneath the biological reason, oftentimes you discover an emotional reason. So that emotional reason can have taken place a long time ago, which means that time does not heal. We have to deal with our problems and they're going to remain there until we deal with them.
Yeah, it's a good thing you mentioned that, because I think yesterday, oh yeah, it was this morning, like very early in the morning, I had an interview with a guest, and I was saying that people, there's this quote they say, which is very, 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 very wrong, that time is the great healer. And for you to say that quote, it's the only way the quote will be true is the assumption that healing is taking place. Because if healing is not taking place, with the passage of time, nothing will happen. What will just happen is 10 years will just pass. And that itself, it's a problem for a lot of persons, because instead of dealing with the issues they have, instead of seeking for help, they're like, oh yeah, they told me time heals. Guess what? If I spend 5 years on top of this problem, I will feel better. Everything will be better. And they don't address issues they need to address. And guess what? 5 years after, things don't improve. I guess they start asking themselves, I feel like my life is terrible. I feel like I'm just cursed and everything is just um, really, really bad. And it leads to really terrible actions afterwards.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I think that time makes the problem worse. And I'll tell you why. So let's say that a person has a breakup in a relationship. They have a divorce, a
Yeah.
bad divorce, let's just say, right? So then they feel very bad. It was a bad divorce. So their friends tell them, look, don't worry, time will heal. So
Okay.
that person is suffering because it was a bad divorce, and because they're suffering so much, they're not paying attention at work. And I'm making this story up, but I think most people can relate to this. Now they're suffering, they're thinking about their ex, and they're not focusing or paying attention at work. So eventually they get fired. They got fired. They think they'll get it. In other words, they lose their job. So now they think, okay, I don't have a job, but I'm going to find another job. Now they're stressed over their job loss situation, and perhaps they don't think too much about their ex, but they are looking for a job, whatever, but they're still distracted. They're not sleeping well. They're not concentrating. They cannot pay their bills. They take their car away because they cannot pay for the car. Now they don't have a way to get to work. And I'm making the story up, but the point I'm making is that it begins to snowball, as we call it. It begins to become worse. It gets worse and worse and worse. We forget that the whole thing started out because they were sad with their divorce, let's say. But the problem actually got worse. Now they don't have a job, they don't have the car. In this example, they don't have the marriage. Maybe they don't sleep well, they don't eat well, maybe they got sick. Now they go to the doctor, they need a surgery. In other words, the problem actually gets worse. Now we forgot about the original cause, which was that they were sad with their divorce, but there's a snowball in which things actually got worse. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that if we're working on the problem, yes, time can be our friend because I need some time to work this out. Absolutely. But if I'm
Yeah.
simply waiting for things to go away, hoping that time takes it away, we're going to be surprised. Problems will actually get worse.
Yeah, it's a perfect example you gave. And I know that it's one thing I notice commonly is people deal with symptoms instead of the root cause of the problem. Those things where you're like, oh, he had the health was affected and all these other things and stuff like that. Now, instead of going back to say what led to all these other things coming up, right? What is this thing telling me about the real issue? They're like, no, it's just like sometimes you could have headache, and the headache could just be a sign that, oh, you need to eat and drink water, right? Or maybe you are really, really tired, you need to rest. That could be of course I have no background in medicine, but that could be what the headache could be telling you. But you're like, oh no, a headache. And guess what? We start taking medicine for a headache. And after some time, if the root cause of the problem is not dealt with, if you're not getting enough sleep, maybe that's the reason why you're having serious headache. Even if you take so much drugs, what will happen is that it might look as if it changed, but guess what? It will come back, and this time with full force, 4 times, 5 times stronger than it was when you initially took the drugs.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, and that's an example of time not healing actually, or not making the problem go away. So, I agree with you. But on the other hand, let's look at the flip side of it. So if a person is actually working on a problem, like they go to therapy, let's say, and therapy is not the only way to work out a problem, but let's say they
Okay.
choose that pathway. So they're going to need some time now. Now time is their friend because it does take some time for the process to work because you have to unravel the problem. You have to discuss it. You have to find causes. You have to do exercises. I mean, you have a bunch of things that you have to do. So we do need some time for the solution to emerge. So I agree then that time is just that the notion that if I passively wait for things to go away, then I don't think that that's true. But if we're working on it, time does become our friends. A good example of that in the United States, it's very common for people to want to lose weight. So a lot of people have excess body weight. And so there's a psychological reason why we gain weight to begin with. There's a
Okay.
psychological, but that psychological reason translates into a behavior, into a physical reason, right? In other words, ultimately, we are overweight because we eat too much. But there's a reason why we eat too much. So when a person wants to lose weight now, we have to reverse the whole process. We have to make changes in their eating habits, change in their exercise habits. But ultimately, we have to find out what led them into the problem to begin with. There's a reason why they got there to begin with. And so it's going to take some time. And once we find that and they heal that cause, if you will, still nature takes its time because we can lose about 1 to 2% of body weight a week in a healthy way. And that means that it's going to take some time to lose the weight. So again, we need some time, right? But the person is working, they're getting the solution, they are developing the solution. So yeah, time is our friend in that case, absolutely.
Yeah, back to the quote you mentioned, a new you awaits you. Now, I want to ask now, what are the assumptions that have been made, right? For you to say what in mathematics, there are certain assumptions you make that, oh, if this is true, then X will be equals to this, right? What are the assumptions you've made for you to say that quote, a new you awaits you?
So a new you awaits within, right? So the
Okay,
first
within.
assumption, yeah, I think it's a great question, by the way. Thank you. So the first assumption is that there is a new you. And that might seem obvious in some cases. And I love the question because that is an assumption, right? For a person who's on a growth mindset, for a person who's always changing and growing, the idea that there's a new me, that idea or that assumption, as you call it, seems reasonable. In other words, yes, tomorrow I'll be better than today because I'm growing, I'm developing, I'm doing better every day. So there's a new me awaiting for me, right? But when a person is depressed, when a person is sad, when a person is heartbroken, when a person is devastated, when you talk to them about the idea of a new you, that does not resonate. That does not make sense. It's like, no, man, you don't understand. I'm done. I feel dead. In other words, the assumption that there is a new you is huge. And it makes a lot of sense for us when we feel happy and when we are on a growth pathway. But when we feel down, that assumption seems so unlikely. What do you mean there's a new me? I'm dying, Like we don't see the possibility of a new me. So that's the first assumption. And it's one that I take with a great deal of respect because I have been there not thinking that there was a future for me. So it's it's a very good one. Thank you for that. And the other one is that this new you is awaiting, right? A new you awaits within. So the idea that this new you is awaiting, meaning that this new version of you is passively waiting to be expressed or to be realized, which suggests that the decision to become that new you is with the outer me, with the present me. In other words, the present version of me needs to do something for that new future version of me to emerge because the new
Yeah.
future version of me is awaiting. It's just there, but there's no guarantee that it's going to be materialized or it will be realized. I have to do something about it. So I have to go get it, basically, right? Because it is just awaiting. So that's the second assumption. And the third one, I think, is this idea of within, right? Where is within?
Okay.
Well, it's certainly not in the body. I'm not saying that we're going to open the body and find the new Flavio in there, right? That's not
Uh,
obviously not what we mean. So within here, I think we mean your soul, your unconscious mind, your innermost thoughts and feelings. And it's a metaphorical within. We do not mean within the physical body, but within your being in a metaphorical way, because we don't really know what that is. I mean, it's not physical, right? It's within in a in a metaphorical way, in the sense that we are an entity, but it's not something that we can touch and grab. It's mentally.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think those
Thanks
are the
for
three assumptions within the quote. Yeah.
yeah, thanks for providing those assumption that provided this is true, this is also true. Because a lot of persons will just pick up the quote and they misinterpret it. They say, "Oh, a new me awaits me," and you don't do anything, you don't make decisions, nothing, and you're like, "Oh yeah, you said a new me awaits me. I've been waiting for this new me. When is this new me going to show up?"
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very good. Yeah, extremely clear question. Yes, I appreciate that. It
yeah,
won't. It may not just show up unless we do something. Yes.
yeah. The follow-up question is, what would be the things, the active things we could do to move this from the present to the, because the new you is awaiting, right? It's awaiting, but we need to get in touch with that new you for something to happen. If not, the new you is just going to keep waiting, metaphorically, of course. What are some of the things we could do to allow what's the word, so the new you can stop waiting? Of course, there'll always be a new you waiting, the latest new you. We want to get in touch with that new you, and then so that we can, yeah, start living the best life.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, by the way. I think that every human being is born with something called desire. We all want something. I don't think you can live without desire. In other words,
Okay.
maybe you want to be rich, maybe you want to be strong, maybe you want to be whatever, right? But we all want something. And in some religions, the notion of desire has been viewed as a negative. In other words, you shouldn't have any desires. You should cancel your desires. I'm not saying that all religions advocate that, but in some cases, I have read about this, that the root of problems is desire. And that may be true if we don't channel those desires properly. But desire is also what propels us forward. So if I want to be, let's say that a person wants to be rich, that's their desire, to be wealthy, to have money, right? Let's say there's a desire. So they start off with that desire and they say, okay, what can I do for my community in order to make more money? Maybe they discover the community needs some type of service and this person begins to provide the service. And in so doing, they end up becoming wealthy, but they did it by serving the community. They did it by helping others, right? So the point I'm making is this: when you set out to help others, to serve, as you did through your podcast, which by the way is wonderful,
Thank
you
you.
encounter difficulties. We all do. You encounter problems, difficulties, challenges. Overcoming those challenges requires that you find the new you within. In other words, the challenges that we face are only proportional to who we are today. It wouldn't be a problem. This problem that I have here today is only a problem because I'm this person. The day that I become this person here, this is no longer a problem. So
Yeah.
I find all these problems, we all do, as we try to move forward in life, responding to our desires. But as I grow, whatever was a problem yesterday is no longer a problem for me. I'll give you a very simple example. I want to buy a pencil. I need $1. I don't have $1, therefore I don't have the pencil. Now I did some kind of work and I have $10. Suddenly, buying one pencil is not a problem for me at all. I can go there and buy 10 pencils.
Okay.
So this simple example illustrates that whatever is a problem today, it's only a function of who I am today. As I follow my desires and I attempt to serve more and do more, I become a different person, and the problems here at this level no longer exist because here the problem does not exist. So it's all about following your desires. Most people are shy about following their desires. They are. They squelch. They suppress their desires. They think it's vain or not good enough or whatever the case might be, but they don't quite push for what they really want. And as a result, they end up pursuing goals that are not that important to them. And if it's not that important to them, they will never be as good at it as they could be if they were pursuing what they really want to pursue.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something I have been like, it has been coming up in conversations I've been having with different guests again and again and again and again, where you know that this is one thing you want to do. Like, it's not like, oh, somebody forced it on you. Like, it's this is your desire. This is what you want to do. And yet, for some reason, your actions speak otherwise. You don't go for the thing. And it's not like, oh, you don't have the physical, it's not like it's physically impossible for you to chase that thing. No, it's there. You can do it if you want to do it. But for some reason, I don't know if it's afraid, because sometimes I'm asking myself, what exactly are we afraid of? It's not like we're going to the battlefield to fight war where, you could lose your life or stuff like that. It's just basic stuff like business and all these other things.
Right, right. It's so sad, right? That is what someone else wants, right? Fighting a war is a very interesting thing because some people like that. Some people are born, to be a warrior, and they really enjoy that, and they become great warriors. And that's one way in which they grow. The exercises that it takes to become a warrior for some people are very good, and that's fantastic for them. But the average person doesn't want to be fighting a war. What's interesting about that is that in that case, they're doing someone else's desire. Whoever came up with the war, that's their desire.
Yeah.
And the soldier on the ground, in some cases, is an instrument of someone else's desire. Now, what I'm about to say is very controversial, and I'm sure that some people are going to dislike what I'm about to say. But when you look across history, and I'm not saying this is 100% exact, but in general,
Yeah. It's
the
just a
people
pattern.
the people who get hurt and killed are the ones who are not truly there. They're the ones who are there because they're someone else's instrument of desire. And so they're not really present. They're not really engaged. It's not their life's desire to be in the battlefield. Those tend to get killed. So the people who are there because they're true warriors, they tend to fare better in war because the entirety of their being is focused on that activity. They tend to do better. Of course, they get killed too eventually, but
Yeah.
we all die eventually, right?
Yeah.
But they
Yeah.
tend to fare better. They tend to do better. This explains, by the way, why some fantastic warriors throughout history were never killed in battle. Some of these people throughout history were never killed in battle. Why? Because they were true warriors. Nobody could defeat them. But then something very menial would kill them outside of the war, right? I mean, a
Yeah.
woman, they would poison them, or, I mean, there are
Yeah.
all kinds of examples in history, but they were never killed in battle because they were warriors. Who gets killed in battle? The person who's there because they don't want to be there and they're an
Yeah.
instrument of someone else's desire. That
Yeah.
applies to business. That applies to everything else as well. You know, People who are good at what they do, they're doing what they want to do and they put all of their souls in it. The people who don't quite want to be there because it's not quite them, they end up turning out mediocre. And, you know, what I would encourage our, your listeners and my listeners and all the people who is always to pursue your passion because you're going to be better at it. You might face difficulties, but at least you're working on what you want to work. At least you're doing what you want to do.
Yeah. The world, the life it's too short to spend it living someone else's life.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Flavio. The people who want to learn more about what you do, and where can they do that?
My website is awesomerelations.life. So one word, awesomerelations.life. And there's a link there. You can reach out to me through WhatsApp, or you can schedule time to talk with me, no cost. Book a time through Calendly and we can talk on Zoom. And also I have several books on Amazon, Flavio Souza Campos, if you type it up. I have 8 books, 1 major novel, And some of these books can be very interesting for some people who are on this path. And I invite you to check them out. If I can be of service to you, I'll be happy to contribute in any way I can.
Yeah, once
And
again, Flavio. Okay, you were about to say something. Sorry for the interruption.
And I was going to say thank you so much. I
Oh,
heard your podcast before you and I got on, and I really admire your work. And now meeting you, I admire you even more. You're calm,
yeah,
you're
thank you so
soothing.
much.
Yeah, you ask fantastic questions. So I really bless you in your work, and I wish you a lot of great success. And I'm looking forward to talking with you again.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I caught it on camera. It's on tape. Everything you said. I
Yeah,
will play it
absolutely.
6 months from now. Yeah, thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Flavio. Yeah, I'm really really happy because for me this podcast, we talked about um doing what you love and everything. For me, it's every time I meet new guests, I'm always like I leave every episode wiser and wiser and wiser. And this is one of them. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day.
Yeah. Uh, I'll stop. Thanks for listening to Relatable Wisdom. If you found something meaningful in this episode, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. If you'd like to support the show, you can do that by buying me a coffee. The link is in the show notes. Every little bit keeps the conversations going. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep growing.